Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. David here, reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Take the time to put in a review with the service where you found our podcast, like iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Get involved. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Practical Guitarist. You can also find us on Twitter as @PractGuitarist. If you're interested in supporting the show, we have launched a Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. If you'd like to donate money to the show, there's always Patreon. Our Patreon is available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can do so at questions@practicalguitarist.com. On with the show. Hi, my name is David, and I have a problem.
Hi, David. This is Jim, and we're here to help you with your problem.
When do I get my fucking coin? That's all I want to know.
You have a few months to go, bro.
No shit, man.
Well, before we get started, let me read you a Craigslist ad. I think for a new segment, we're going to call Funny Craigslist Musician Ads. This is a guitarist, I think, or a guitar that was posting to Craigslist. Here we go. Guitar, want to play good. Fast, heavy, slow, mid-tempo. Somewhere between Brainiac and Old Man Gloom, period. If you live in Richmond, I go there all the time and don't mind the travel.
%, reverse bracket.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea what the hell's going on in that. And it's for you to translate. I'm surprised that this person hasn't had millions of responses.
He's just asking for a guitar that plays good, right?
Guitar play good.
No, a guitar that wants to play good.
A guitar that wants to play good. It doesn't necessarily have to play good. It wants to play good.
Yeah, I would hope the guitar would want to play good. Otherwise, it's going to end up with firewood, right? I mean,
that's correct.
Or fire plastic, or depending on your era and
fire
style.
Plastic. Remember to dispose of your guitars correctly, according to the recycle and non-recycle laws within your state or province.
You know, the funny thing is, I for the first time today, I have decided that I'm kind of glad I'm in the middle of Year of No Gear.
Really? Okay. Explain.
Okay. So this is going to sound absolutely insane, but I can't make up my mind on what the next guitar I want to buy is going to be. I have no fucking clue. I spent the entire day watching Anderton's videos. And I watched videos of Stratocasters, and I watched videos of G&Ls, and I watched videos of Silver Sky, and I watched videos of, you name it, I probably saw it at some point today. The Sterling Axis and all this different stuff, and I'm still just as confused, if not more confused than I was this morning. I was hoping I'd be able to single something out and be like, yeah, this is my goal. This is where I'm headed. But I still have no goddamn clue. And I could definitely see myself at the end of this year being like, I'm going to end up with 2, because I don't think any production guitar that's out there really has all the things I want. And if a listener wants to point me in the direction of a production guitar that has these features, I would be thrilled. I will say what the features are. I'm looking for a 25 or 25 and a half inch scale with stainless steel frets of a large size. It's got to have, it doesn't have to have locking tuners. That's not a big deal. I'll upgrade those. I don't care about that. I would prefer hum single. I want a tremolo bridge that is not a Floyd Rose. I want a set neck, or as whatever you can do to get rid of the heel, even if it's like a PRS CE, like almost no heel whatsoever kind of deal. And if I can find those quality, and a pick guard. I don't want direct mount pickups if I can avoid it. If I could find those qualities in a guitar, I think I would be thrilled. And then, that's why I keep coming back to the Ibanez AC, but it has a heel. It's like a big heel. I don't care if it's rounded off; it's still a heel. And the reason I'm saying no heel, I've been doing all that exercises and stuff, and I get to the 12th fret or the 14th fret and my thumb comes out from underneath the neck. There's nothing I can do about it because the heel is, like the 15th. I think it's close to where it joins. So,
Right.
and I have short, stubby fingers. So, I understand the Jason Becker model from Kiesel has no heel, and it has a Stratty kind of body, so that might work for me. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm headed. That, and I saw these custom Telecasters that Andertons did this afternoon, and they did one in this purple sparkle, and it was a road worn. It was a road worn, but it was it's like what do you call a relic finish, and I'm not huge on the relic, but I liked it because in this guitar the finish was so thin you could see the wood grain, but it was sparkly and like it had a tremendous look to it, and I think Danish Pete actually has one, so. I don't know. I'm like, maybe I can get a Strat like that. Like maybe I can order one or get a cheapie and have it refinished like that. I don't know. I really like the look of the guitar. That's the first time I've actually seen a guitar where I'm like, yeah, I'd probably buy that on looks alone. So to each his own, I guess. I'm sure there are a lot of guys out there that just do that. They're like, oh, that red is sick. I love it. I'm buying it. That's not me. But yeah, so Year of No Gear and impulse purchases. There aren't any. Number one, I did. So I have been making like these little tiny minor purchases here and there, like strings and that kind of thing. This week I bought knobs for my Indonesian S500 because I need dome knobs. I had the regular S500 comes with tele knobs, and I was realizing that the top hats were causing me to bump the controls all the time because they have the Fender style top hats on them, and I grew up using those, but I've been not using them for so long that I'm like, man, I got to go back to domes. And actually, my first guitar had domes, so many years ago, and I think I've gravitated towards them since. Almost every guitar I've had has had dome knobs on it, at least at some point. So I'm happy to have them. I got them. There's a guy local here who sells them on Reverb, and I got them for like the whole set for like $11. They're decent. They're not junky like like plastic inner core with a metal outer core or whatever that's super thin or something. They're pretty solid. They're actually pretty heavy too. So hopefully they'll last me a long time before they start tarnishing and stuff. But yeah, so we wanted to talk about addiction today, gas. Yeah. And for those of you who are uninitiated, gas is gear acquisition syndrome. And it's something that's very close to my heart. And it is close to Jim's heart as well, as I look at the 4 guitars he has hanging behind him and the dozens I know he actually has in other places. It's panic attack inducing on your wallet especially. And I entered into Year of No Gear, and I think we've talked about this on the show before because, partially because I thought it would be good for the show, and it would be kind of a competition thing. But now that the competition's over and I'm 3 months in, I'm like, no, this is a personal quest at this point. And I really haven't come that close to buckling. The one time I almost bought an amp, but I ended up not doing it, and I'm glad I didn't because I would have regretted it. That would have been my early out, and I probably would be broke right now. But no early out, and have a nice little nest egg, starting to save up for really fancy guitar. And in fact, I think I was talking to somebody, I don't know, it was in the Facebook group, but it might have been via private message, and we were talking about, ways to save money. And it sounds silly, but like buying an expensive guitar that lasts you a long time or is an investment, brings you a lot more happiness and joy than buying, an effect pedal here and there that you just keep flipping and selling. And ultimately, I mean, you can spend $3,000 on your pedal board, but wouldn't it be better to spend $3,000 on a decent guitar?
I think that I'm not sure how people look at it, but I'm just going to give a generalization. The feeling is that there's this instant gratification. I can spend $70, $80, $100, $200, and I don't feel too bad, right? You've seen that person that has like 20 guitars hanging behind them, right?
Yeah, those people scare the shit out of me.
Typically, if you look close at the headstocks, you got Epiphone, Samick. There's a lot
they're
of
not always the real
low-end
high end
guitars,
Gibsons.
right.
I have seen
Right.
some people that the only way they had what they had was like they had to own a store. Because I remember years ago in Harmony Central was a guy posted his collection, and he just posted the cases. And honestly, there was an entire wall of his house that was, like on their ends, lined up against the wall, guitar cases, and they were like Fender cases and stuff. And I'm just going, you're out of your mind, man. And he had an entire wall of his house. There was probably, I would say there's 200 cases. I was just like, what are you doing? And then you ask the question, you're like, is that in your basement? In one flood. That's all it takes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a pro, like, I get it. You have to, have a guitar for each song or whatever, depending on what you're doing. Like, I understand that. But for the vast majority of us, we really don't need more than 5 or 6. I know that that's going to be like, blasphemy to most people, but this is the practical guitarist. For what you're doing at any given time, 5 or 6, maybe a couple extra if you're doing something else on the side, or you'll always gravitate towards this particular style, but that's not what you're playing on stage, that kind of thing. So,
well, okay. So what we've got is when you're looking at there's two sides of practicality, right? And really, I guess there's practical and impractical. Some people are sitting with a large amount of money, right? And they want to spend it on good stuff. I had a friend who was a lawyer, and he had 19 Gibson Les Pauls, 19 of them.
Well, he's a lawyer.
He's a lawyer, and he spent his money on what he wanted, and he wanted Les Pauls. And for people who are not of that means, he made a good living. 19 Les Pauls, a lot of Les Pauls. I don't care. I know stores that have not seen 19 Les Pauls.
Yeah.
Much less an individual.
Well,
then
there's
you look
nothing
at
wrong with that either. I mean, if you have the money, go for it.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, if you're the typical starving player, you don't have to do that. It's not necessary.
Right. That's where I'm going. So, but if you're the everyday starving player, I think Nick Mongers was the one who mentioned that he doesn't buy a guitar unless he's got
a use for it.
A use for it.
I think that was regarding amps, because he was saying, like, I'll buy guitars, but they have to be vintage.
Right. And let's talk gear in general. And the gigs have to pay for the difference in any sale to upgrade.
Right.
So if you look at it that way, and you say, okay, I got to have, my income doesn't pay for this. My income from the bands pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a completely different thing. It's also a different drive. We're in a particularly different society now, because there are people who, and some of them YouTube celebrities, who don't gig. They don't make a living outside of that, and then it's like, okay, but it's not supporting your family. It's not putting food on the table. This
actually harkens back to something else I wanted to talk about. Today I posted that horrible video of my playing and just kind of noodling around with some different changes and stuff from YouTube. And first off, I want to apologize if you sat through the first 5 minutes of that video, because it was pretty bad.
That's pretty much all I could sit through.
It was pretty embarrassing. Like, if you actually, Jim, the funny thing is, if you waited till 15 minutes in or something, it starts to get decent.
Yeah.
But the funny part is, like, I'd been sitting there and I'd been actually playing for like an hour before that. And I was cooking, because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten the camera out. But by the time I got the camera out and set up my tripod, like, everything fell apart. I was like, what the hell is happening here? I was so embarrassed. And I didn't even watch, so I just posted. I figured, there's a couple sour notes in there. It'll be fine. And then I started watching it, and I was like, oh my God, this was worse than I remember, like really bad stuff. But that was because I put 30 minutes of, video down and I forgot how bad the first like 5 was, or I wouldn't have posted it. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because like I'm kind of looking at it the same way too. Is like, well, I'm not playing right now. I mean, at the very minimum, I could provide entertainment to people for free via Facebook or whatever, and maybe they get something out of my playing. Maybe they don't. At least it helps me keep my chops up to think about performance and all that. So I'm kind of like using it as you used to go to open mics and stuff like that, and it wasn't just about meeting the other players. It was just kind of like to keep your chops up and to make sure that you could still carry the room and stuff. And I'm kind of thinking maybe I should use it that way. That being said, you got to have a big enough audience to actually, need that or to get anything out of it. But yeah, so I apologize if you heard that, but that's kind of what I'm thinking right now. And that's kind of the mode of guys like Jared Dines, who, really don't perform regularly. Jared does actually, though, I think, but he does. He's more of a drummer. Yeah, he's more of a drummer than anything. Which is why I don't understand why he's got so many guitar videos. And I know we have fans of his in the Facebook group and probably who listen to this show. There's a little bit of crossover there, but I don't really think much of his playing. There's a lot of guys out there that play a lot like him or better. And just like, if you're gonna listen to that kind of music, Tosin Abasi is head and shoulders probably the best gent player right now. I listened to him on Jude Gold just recently on that No Guitar Safe, and I was floored. Some of the things he was doing, he just talking about like, oh yeah, I do this and this and this. It was just like nothing. These super complicated lines. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, I had to woodshed that one for like 3 weeks. It's like no big deal, and I just use it all the times.
Yeah. I would have to woodshed it for a year, and I would use it once.
But he's totally this dude that that's all he does is play guitar all day long. And he, I've joked about how I used to play on the shitter. Like, I'm sure Tosin Abasi plays in the shitter. There's no doubt in my mind.
I don't know if he takes his takes it in there, but
so word to the Facebook group. If there's anybody in the Chicago area, any of our listeners, if you're in the Chicago area, Tosin will be at Chicago Music Exchange, I believe, on October 9th.
You're gonna go over there?
Yeah, Dan Kish and I are gonna go over there. So I'm really excited to see Tosin because I missed him. He didn't make it to Gearfest this year. He was supposed to be there for Fishman, and he ended up bombing out because there was a problem with his plane, so he didn't get there in time. Man, what a killer player! It's him and I forget who else. Somebody reasonably well known. But they're for Fishman, so it'll be a fun event. Maybe I'll win some pickups or something.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Maybe you can set up a discussion. So
yes.
One of the things that you're doing as you go without buying gear, and I've been without buying gear for a little while.
Hating myself.
Well, yeah, mine is. I had to hunker down a bit. We weren't sure what was happening with my contract that I was on, and we got it. But it was a little bit of I better save every penny I've got right now.
Just be careful. Just be careful.
So I don't want to go nuts because then it's like, whoosh, but then you go, ooh, I better be careful.
Well, you and I, we've both been having some personal stuff like that lately.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the, oh my God, and they get the whoosh moment, but then you got, what if it comes again? So, but yeah, that's what the new band is.
Every time that happens, though, you're like the squirrel, right? You got to gather all the nuts just to make sure that you have your ducks in a row. So.
Well, realistically, if the new band works out the way we're looking at, we've got some discussions with booking agents and such. I can make an extra house payment 12 times next year, and still have money for gear.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's how much we're gonna work.
Yeah, well, I had a friend growing up whose father used to gig, and he told us he was making $30,000 a year doing wedding gigs. Yeah. And that put that in perspective, that it would have been in the 70s and 80s.
Right.
So that's like $60,000 today, which that's that many people don't make that much right now. I mean, so that's a lot of money. Now, the cool thing is that's the same guy that has the Rickenbacker 12 string. the $12,000 Rickenbacker from like 1968, and then he has a CF Martin 12 string as well, which is I have no idea how much that's worth. That thing's basically priceless. You know, if anybody hasn't actually had their hands on an old Martin, it's kind of funny because they don't have truss rods, or if they do, they're not adjustable. You have to take the neck off and get into it in order to straighten the neck, or you have to steam the neck, and it's a big pain in the ass.
Oh yeah.
So his neck is currently severely bowed.
Yeah, Rickenbackers, they're neck through typically. So
well, no, I'm not talking about the Rick. I'm talking about the CF Martin he's got.
Right.
Yeah,
talking about the Rickenbackers.
So they're neck through, but they also have they do have a rod in them though.
Yes, they do.
And especially, I think his 12 actually has 2 rods.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If I
Dual
recall.
truss rod.
Yeah, if I recall, which that kind of makes sense given the amount of tension. And he's got this super rare thing on it called the Drop 6, which was a factory option, and it has it's like a claw system, and you can pull it over and pull it down, and it actually takes 6 of the strings out of the path of the pick, which is really an odd feature to have on a guitar, but it kind of works.
Did you try it?
Yeah, I played it.
Did you try it that way?
No. So here's the thing: he didn't want us to use the Drop 6, so I didn't mess with it. He's like, it's functional, but every time you use it, it causes the guitar to go out of tune and stuff. So.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Throws it way out of tune, changes a whole lot of dynamics. And I don't know if you played it that way, but you kind of have to learn where to put your pick because they're out of the way pretty much.
Yeah, they're lower, but they're still there. And if you think about it, it wreaks havoc on the guitar because it's no different than holding the strings down to where the pickups are at.
That's absolutely right.
So
almost exactly on top of the pickup, depending on how high you get pickup set.
That's probably why they have the double truss rod, is to help counteract that.
Yeah, I got to play an old 330 and an old was it Rickenbacker? Is it 330 and 660?
Yeah, I think so.
366, 333 and 660, 366.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. I got to play 2 of those this week in a collection, and I learned why I didn't want the lower end of the 333. I hated that thing.
I'm not a big fan of the Rick sound, man. I gotta be honest. I have never played because I guess they're all semi-hollow, right? They don't make a full solid body guitar.
Oh, they were both solid body.
Oh, they do a full solid body because all the ones I've ever seen have been semi-hollow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'll get the actual serial, or I mean.
The actual model number. So my whole thing is, I get the Birds and I get a lot of the I guess the 80s indie bands that were using them, and I get the sound like that jangly thing, and I mean honestly it just doesn't do much for me. I would rather, so I'm an extremist, right? I want my sounds to be very Strat like or very humbucker like, and really I don't have much room in between. And I know the Strat isn't as far as the Telecaster in terms of a single coil sound, but that's kind of where I sit. And so when I hear a lot of these odd other pickups, even Jazz Masters and all that kind of stuff, they don't do a whole lot for me. I'm not saying that there aren't some that wouldn't pique my interest. Certainly there's some Gretches and stuff that I kind of like, but I like the old Supro pickups too, but I wouldn't seek them out. I mean, if somebody handed me a Supro and was like, play this on stage, I'd be like, okay. But I'm not going to, go dig one out of the garbage bin and put it in one of my guitars.
Yeah. So what I played was a Model 350 V63, which was it was based on the 325 that was the Liverpool guitar. It was a famous thing. 3 pickups, like a TV Jones style thing.
Yeah. That's kind of what they were known for.
Yeah, it was cool. The other one I played was in the 600 series, 620, Model 620, which is also, it's just a 2 pickup version really of the same guitar. The pickups are very far apart. Not like your typical humbuckers are they're relatively close together. These things are way out there.
Yeah.
So the neck pickup is way out.
It always seemed like the Rick body is so big.
It is, and
I don't know how many frets they have. I'm assuming it's 21, but it always just seemed like the 21. Scale was like a lot longer or something.
Yeah, it's 21 frets. The one thing about Rickenbackers, I love a Rickenbacker, by the way. The one thing about Rickenbackers is the headstocks are the ugliest things I've ever seen.
No, actually, I really like the headstock. That was the one thing that I actually really like about them.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the 6-string headstocks. I'm not talking about the bass heads.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
The bases have that cool.
Oh, yeah, no. I'm talking about the 6 strings. They're fine.
Really?
I don't mind them.
You like those?
They're not Tyler's, if you want to go that far. I don't think they're the prettiest thing on earth, but I'm like, they fit the guitar.
Yeah.
So, those guitars have a very retro look that is very different than what you would typically think of when you say the word retro. You know, I think when I hear retro, I think Supros and Airlines and stuff like that. Maybe a little bit of Jazzmaster, Jaguar type guitars. I don't think Rickenbacker, but when I see them, I'm like, yeah, no, that's definitely a retro design. That's pick guard and everything.
The only Rickenbacker I've ever really wanted was a 360 12-string. That's the only one I really. I mean, other than the bass.
Because the birds and all that stuff. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
Honestly, looking at their lineup, the only guitar that I think I would buy from Rickenbacker is probably their bass. Yeah, the Rumor bass. I guess it's the Rumor, right? Is that what they call it?
The Rumor bass.
Yeah, their main bass.
Oh, you mean the 4003?
Is that what it is? I don't know why I was thinking it was called the Rumor bass. But.
No, because you don't want a 4004. You want a 4003.
Yeah, that one.
You want a 4003.
That like Lemmy and all those guys were using.
Yes, that's the 4003.
Yeah, so the 4003 would be like one of my staple basses if I had, basses in the studio for a band to come in and play. I would have, P bass, J bass, obviously, and then I would probably have like a Stingray, and then I would have that and some sort of active bass, probably a Spectre or something.
Yeah.
And then, you could pick and choose the ones you want. And you really only need one bass amp, and that's an SVT Classic, but that's my opinion.
I can tell you, who made probably, to me at least, probably one of the greatest basses as far as killer bass for decent money was Schecter.
Yeah, Schecter makes some good ones.
Schecter's
makes some fucking great basses, man.
Oh,
you told me the story about that PD. I know which one you're going to talk about.
I tell you, man.
I almost bought one of those myself.
I love that thing. It was a Millennium. It was not a BXP. It was not a made overseas one. The American made. It was just fantastic. It was killer.
Even the BXPs are not bad. They're not terrible.
No, they're not terrible, but none of them. I would have bought one had I, come around to.
Did you see that PV brought back the Wolfgang?
No.
They're calling it the, and you're going to laugh, it's the HP model, as in the Hartley PV model.
Oh, that's a kick right in the nuts.
It's a USA guitar.
Really?
And they honestly look really damn good.
Wow.
I was looking at them. I kind of want to go actually play one.
Yep.
Because I'd love to stick one to EVH. Just because. Actually, so I had a PV.
Oh, yeah, the HP trademark. He's got a big trademark on it, too.
Yeah.
Number 2.
And look how he sloped the body now. It looks just like a Wolfgang.
Yeah.
It's hysterical. No, so I had a Wolfgang, a PV Wolfgang. I had a special. It was a gold top with 2 Seymour Duncans in it. And it had I think it was a JB set, And I actually really liked that guitar. I parted ways with it because it had no trem, number one. So, and I got the SG, so it kind of defeated the purpose of it for what I was doing. But man, I would love to have a tremolo equipped guitar with, bird's eye maple neck like the one I had, because that bird's eye maple neck was pretty outstanding. Things sometimes slip through your fingers. That's all I can say.
I'm looking at one right now. It's gorgeous. The Tiger Eye color scheme.
Oh yeah, you're looking at the same one I was looking at.
God,
yeah,
that is beautiful, man. Holy shit. Yeah, I'd like to give that a try. Is that 24 frets or 22?
I believe they're 22. Are they 22? Yeah, I believe I thought they were 24.
I think it's 22.
But either way, they look really cool. And I don't think they're horribly expensive either. They're right around the price of a CE, I think, retail. So who knows what they're actually going for in stores? Probably about $1,000. And
it'd be interesting. Well, let me tell you something. It's $21.99 on the website.
Yeah, but that's their price, which means that we don't know what the retailers are selling them for.
Right.
Given this PV, I would think around $1,500. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not selling them for 22 or whatever. I mean, they're made in USA, and you know that they have to have the quality level because they got to compete with Fender for the EVH stuff. I honestly, for my needs right now, if I was going to go that way, I would probably be looking at a Charvel over an EVH. Number one, because I don't want anything with his name on it. I mean, what the hell we've talked about this on the show before. I have a problem with buying guitars that has somebody's signature on it, but to have the brands share the initials with the artist. Come on, guys. I mean, nobody the Les Paul gets away with it because, let's face it, the generation of musicians that are playing Les Pauls today, I bet 3/4 of them probably don't even realize who Les Paul actually was.
Yep.
Us gear nuts, we all know he designed pretty much half the gear we use in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So anything other than that, I just kind of trips me out when I see somebody's name attributed to it like that. EVH by Wolfgang. Oh, that's named after his nephew or his son or something. It's the son. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. I don't care.
Wolfgang.
Yeah.
Your dad didn't like you when he called you Wolfgang.
Well, the 5150 was the address of his studio.
Was it?
Yeah. That's why he took it with him when he left PV. Funny how
all I remember was when he left PV, he was like, yeah, you can't call it the 5150 anymore.
So they called it the 6505.
I hate to say, now I am not a big Hardy, whatever his name is, PV fan, but as far as the person, I know he can be a little bit of a douche, but as far as the stuff he's done
he has reinvented the industry so many times.
Yeah.
I mean,
people don't give him credit, really. I mean, yeah, he's not conceited. He's convinced. You can say that.
Well, there was a time like when he was making all the inexpensive stuff that everybody's like, oh, he's just the ghetto budget guy. And, I get it. He was. But at that time that, he was the man for the masses. But he was the one.
The one person who was making inexpensive stuff that still had decent.
Yeah, that was good. And even today, he makes that company still makes good inexpensive stuff. Now, not everything they make is good. I mean, their El Cheapo stuff. Yeah,
but you can say that about every company.
Oh, I think their bottom end is below other companies' bottom end. I think where they start to really make some value is things like the classic series of amp line, and then the 6505s are an outstanding value.
Have you picked up one of the sub $200 freaking guitars from, well, not Fender now, I guess it's Squier by Fender or whatever?
Sure.
Yeah.
It just depends. Well, it depends. Again, have you picked up one of the sub $200 PVs, like an old Predator or something?
Wow. I mean, I'm not talking about old. I'm talking about now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you go pick up a $200 Squier now, it's playable. You pick up a $200 PV from 10 years ago, it's not playable.
Yeah, but 10 years ago, nobody was playable.
Well, good luck finding one to try now, because nobody will even carry them because they never got their brand quality up. That's why HP is being advertised as a made in USA guitar, because everybody knows import from PV equals shit.
And that's why when I came to my bass, I was like, I'm not buying an imported version of that bass.
Yeah, I think where you get the most value out of PV is in that $500 to $1,000 range. I think once you go over $1,000, you should be looking at another brand for anything they do. And I'm not just even if we want to get into like PA equipment and that kind of stuff.
I got that PV for $450 or $400. It was an incredible good deal.
Yeah, and I see them on Reverb like new old stock like that. And that's the one I almost bought. I don't think it was an import. I think it was a And I ended up balking because I'm like, they won't cut $25 out of the price, so I'm not buying it. And that's how I ended up with my jazz bass. But yeah, they're a great brand. I'll just give them that. Like, they do produce some outstanding products. I know I've kind of poo-pooed their 5150, the 6505, but the 6505, after listening to some AB clips and stuff on Andertons today and some other things, I do think I actually lean towards the 6505 being a better amp than what the EVH is, and that's because the EVH is noisy as shit. Correct me if I'm wrong, it has a built-in gate, doesn't it? They had to put a noise gate in the 5150.
Yeah.
The 5153 or whatever. I mean, the 6505 is a freaking gained out amp, and it doesn't have much of a clean channel, but at least it's not absurdly noisy. So
bingo.
I don't know. I think that's a loss for Fender on that one. They really could have. So Fender needed somebody like Eddie Van Halen to come in and kind of champion some of their higher gain stuff. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, Jim, I don't know if you're familiar with the Supersonic line. They're great amps. And I was really kind of surprised that nobody really caught on with those amps. Now, there are a couple guys using them. I know Greg Koch used them for a while when he was, I don't know if it was because of his Fender endorsement or if he used them. I know Jeff Beck was using them for a while. Steve Vai was using them. He had a couple on stage with him. And I played a couple. I almost bought one several times. I honestly would probably consider one right now if I could get a decent deal on one used, but people know they're good enough amps that they get pretty good prices used. I actually like the little 22 watt, the deluxe reverb platform one, but I thought that they would try to get somebody like an not Eddie Van Halen himself, but somebody maybe from that time period to start using them. And if they could do that, if they could, hash out some sort of endorsement deal, then they would be able to finally say, look, we did it. We made a high gain amp that people are actually interested in. But that's never panned out. So now I think Fender's kind of going the other way, and they're like, we really don't need to make a high gain amp because not everybody plays high gain amps. And so they have kind of that whole other end of the spectrum. Anybody who doesn't play a high gain amp has a Fender. I don't know if I agree with that strategy, but so back to the year of no gear fallout, terrifying manifestation that is my life. I have been going through some crises lately and realizing that I am, in fact, addicted to gear in the same way that people can be addicted to anything, really. Shopping is probably the most common one I could think of. And there have been some questions posted about it in the group, and I would absolutely, like to answer some of those. One of the questions that came up was, I don't know if it was a question that was posed by someone or if it was posed by myself in my head, but it was like, what does this, how do you characterize it as an addiction, I guess? And it's the fact that, I was getting something out of the fact that I bought new gear. Even if it was something that I put up on the shelf, it was just like, oh, that's cool. I have that now. And that felt really good. And then after a couple weeks, that feeling fades, and I'm like, all right, I got to get something else that makes me feel really good. And now, having put enough distance between buying crap and actually playing guitar, for one thing, my guitar playing is improving, which you can't tell from that video today. No
comment.
That looks like it came from like 4 or 5 years ago. The really funny thing is I had a video come across my my timeline this morning when I got this Fender Strat from a coworker, and I fixed it up, ended up selling it off. But anyway, I got it and I played it, and I was really stoked about the video because I wanted to show my coworker, like, yeah, so this is what I did with your guitar. And after doing all that work, now I'm kind of like scratching my head and I'm going, wow, that really wasn't even that good playing in that video. And I can definitely play, outplay that video by a lot. And so now I kind of sit back and I laugh, and I put that video up today and I'm like, what the hell? This is even worse than that, like by a long shot. I've been a stage comfortable player for a really long time. The better part of, I've been playing probably almost 20 years now. So probably the better part of like 18 or 19 years. I was playing out, after about a year. So for me to like post something like that, and it's bad enough that like I would get booed off the stage if I did that for real. So
Oh yeah.
it's just kind of funny. It's really embarrassing. And but in terms of the Gear No Gear thing, like I've been spending more focus on actually playing the instrument and making more out of what I have, which is something we wanted to talk about in this episode. So we've noticed, and I'm not pointing fingers at any particular podcast, but some of our contemporary podcasts, they've kind of shifted focus. A lot of them in the beginning used to be about, hey, you can get by with whatever you got. And it's kind of like shifting focus to, oh yeah, and there's these other brands, that you could be interested in that are kind of high dollar. And I don't fault that. Like, I understand there are certain players where that's their jam, is like to have a pedal board with, really expensive boutique stuff on it, because that's where they get most of their sound from. But I'm not that guy. And I find that there's some really simple stuff you can do to get the sounds out of the guitars you have, and basically just make them sound the way you want to, or at least get closer to what you want out of the box. Yeah. Number one, the first thing is, the first modification you can do is actually learn to play. And I'm not making fun of people or anything like that, but if you don't know how to play your instrument yet, and you're still in the beginning phases, throwing money at the problem is not going to solve it. And that's why I wanted to bring this up. So the first thing to do is to get yourself some lessons. If you feel like, you're not up to snuff, or you can't pick up a book and like just start playing along with the book or whatever, or, you have trouble picking things out by ear. Maybe, you still hear like notes ringing out when you play that you don't. I guess what I'm trying to say is like isolate what's wrong. And if it's something you can fix with lessons, do that first. Or something you can fix with a book or a, practice regimen, do that first. And then maybe start looking at, what can I do with my rig to improve my sound? And we've talked about this, and I'm going to get some shirts made up, but we had the hierarchy of tone. And I'm not going to go through the hierarchy right now. That was in a previous episode. If you want to go back, you can listen to it. I think it's actually in the show notes for that episode. We talk about the hierarchy of tone. I'm going to get some shirts made up from from whatever our shirt vendor is, so we can sell some hierarchy of tone. It'll look like a food pyramid, except it'll have, speakers at the top. And
yeah, that's a good idea.
So I've been toying around with that idea for a while. There's another shirt we're going to do too, but I'm not going to reveal that one on the podcast, as my wife actually suggested it. So got to get that done. Hopefully I'll get some time to work on that stuff this week. But when you start, kind of thinking about like, how do I improve my sound? I saw a guy, I know him actually through work, and then also through the shop where Good Time Music, where I do a lot of my shopping. And I ran into him there, and he was looking at another guitar. And I know he's not a long time player or anything. And he's like, I'm just looking for something to give me a little bit like different range of sounds and stuff. And I'm like, well, honestly, I'd be looking at a different amp before I would look at a different guitar for sounds, because I think the amp provides a lot of the characteristics of what we think of as what a guitar sounds like.
Yeah.
And yes, guitar sounds different. Guitars do sound different from guitar to guitar, but I think that's like maybe 30% different, whereas the amp is, like 50% different. I think you get more impact out of your amp. And so I just, I kind of threw that out there, and I think he did end up actually buying a different guitar, but, you try to inform people and try to think about different things, because everybody thinks like, oh, well, one piece of the puzzle fixes everything when they first start, and it's not that at all. We've said this early on the show that guitar is a system, and each part of that system plays an integral part in the end result. So nuts to bolts, you go through your cables and your pickups and your strings and the guitar itself and what kind of pick guard you use and all these different things, and it makes an impact on the end result. Now, how much of an impact each piece makes, that's subjective. But if you have a goal in mind, you can pick the pieces you need to get where you're going.
Yeah.
So Jim, what do you think is the cheapest like path to upgrade once you actually realize like I need to get something else out of my guitar?
You know, so if I'm looking at a path to upgrade, as we've spoken up before, first of all, pickups. It really depends on what it is that you're looking to get out of your guitar. If you don't think you're articulating well, pickups are a big thing.
Yeah.
You have great pickups that don't articulate well. And so it sounds like one big string versus 6 individual strings. It's hard to describe until you've actually played a good set of pickups and do that.
Personally,
but
I think
if you were to tell me,
along with your pickup conversation, I think the first thing to do before you even start considering buying pickups is adjust the heights.
Yeah.
So many people don't.
Well, that's what I was getting at. So if you were to sit down and say, oh, you know what? My guitar just doesn't, I'm not getting the sustain. I got to go get a sustain pedal. I got to go get a compressor. Have you tried raising your action just a little bit?
Or raising your pickups? Or
lowering your pickups. Sometimes, and you can do this, you can get the pickup so close, they're pulling your strings.
Sure.
And so what they're doing is they're literally pulling the string so hard that they're making the string stop vibrate.
Mm-hmm.
So stopping their vibration. So the idea is at that point is to lower the pickups just a little. So adjusting the height of your pickups, lower or higher. If you want more output out of your guitar, you can raise your pickups. You'd be surprised at how minuscule a height you can go to get more out of your pickups. Be careful with that neck pickup because believe it or not, neck pickups are usually hotter than bridge pickups. But anyway, then you've got strings. Try adjusting them, raise them a little bit. Get a heavier gauge. Just a little, go from 9s to 10s. Go from 9s to 9.5s. Nowadays you can buy 9.5 inch or 9.5s.
Change the type of string. Go from
change the type of string.
Nickel or steel or whatever you're going to do. You can even go to stainless steel. I mean,
you can get so many tonal differences. One for free. All these adjustments we talk about, those are free.
Yeah. So you were talking about neck pickups being hotter. I mean, that's not been my experience ever. To be honest with you, I've never had a neck pickup hotter than my bridge pickup.
I've always had the problem is that the neck pickup is a lot louder than when I say hotter, I don't mean the ohmage. I'm not talking about measuring it out.
No, I mean in volume, and that's yes. So if you have typically your neck pickup has to be backed off more anyway because the elliptical path of the string and where the string vibrates actually is much wider up there. So that's actually why the pickups are wound to be lower, quieter. Nick Bongers can chime in the Facebook group if he wants to set the record straight on that. But I could see the phenomenon being described as like loud pickup, but it's really the string that's causing that.
Right. And, well, that goes back to what I was talking about with raising your action a little bit.
Sure. I would never raise my action personally, but that's
Well, it doesn't have to be a lot. The minuscule movement of this action being raised is, we're talking about less than a millimeter. We're talking about.
I was experimenting that with just that the other day because I was setting up one of my guitars, and I have feeler gauges, and I think it was 0.10, 0.10, which is
millimeter.
It's infinitesimal, and I can feel
just over the width of the hair, and you can feel
difference.
It. Yes, you can
by a lot. Yep. I'm like, nope, not doing this. Crank it back down.
But if you're going to raise your, if you're going to get thicker strings, you're going to go from, like I said, 9 to 10 or 9 to 9.5. Raising that actions a little bit is going to give you more of this. It goes along with the fact that just what you're talking about. I never knew why my neck pickups. I never thought about the fact that the neck pickups is closer to the swinging of the string.
Exactly.
And that's why it seems hotter. So as you bring the pickup closer to the string, and you get that.
I was going to say, Another pro tip: if you're getting if you're having problems with articulation, I've had a lot of luck with this. If your pickup has adjustable pole pieces, and that means it's got screws in it or whatever,
Yeah, screws in the pole piece.
lower the pickup down and bring the pole pieces up. Because
Yep.
that will help counteract the fact that usually when you have adjustable pole pieces, you have some sort of like bar magnet or something in the pickup that's helping that situation along. I don't think Gibson's I don't know exactly.
Gibson's not as much as Fender.
Yeah, because I don't think they have a bar magnet in the Gibsons anyway. Right.
No, and Gibson
or Fender doesn't have adjustable pole pieces. I mean, you can adjust them with a pair of pliers, but you're not supposed to.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that because you can break them.
Yeah, if you're not careful, you can definitely break them. But my S500 pickups are adjustable, so.
Yeah, you look at the Fender pickups, right? And you look at the little poles, and they're supposed to go with the height of the string relative to the pickup, right?
Well, it's actually they're supposed to go with so if you're using standard set of 9s like they put on their guitars, it's supposed to match the output level of those strings to the pickup and the radius and all that. So that's that. It's not random. Those pickups are designed that way for a reason. Yep. I actually kind of like the flat pole piece pickups for those kinds of guitars because I think nobody I know uses the standard set of string gauges the whole time they have the guitar. It would be much better to have something like GNL S500 does with the MFD pickups, where they've got they got hex screws for the pole pieces. So at least then I can adjust my pickup or my pickup height to relative to the string volumes and not have to be set in stone.
Right. The other thing to look at is, and this is an inexpensive purchase, is get different pots.
Yeah. What's the pots are like $10 a pot now or something? They're like between $7 and $10.
What's the company that makes the
CTS is the popular
CTS,
one.
yeah.
They're the popular
one. So if you go get a set of CTS pots, you can be under $20. Get or borrow a soldering iron. Learn to solder. Do yourself a favor and learn to solder anyway.
Yeah, if you're a guitar player and you're really getting into gear, because I know not everybody that listens to the show is into gear, and I know not everybody that is into gear listens to the show, or vice versa. The whole thing is not. We have a broad audience. If you don't know how to do this, it's worth it just because you can swap your own pickups.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about like 4 wires in most cases. It's easy.
It's not hard. Make sure you take pictures of everything you do before you start removing
I recommend
stuff.
that.
Take photos. Everybody's got a phone somewhere, whether it's in your phone. A camera, whether it's in your phone or whatever.
And there's idiot guides online too. So even if you screw it up, you can see, Seymour Duncan puts out idiot wiring diagrams that are like drawings
for dumbasses,
schematics,
And you can find a million. And I would go to someplace reputable, like you said, Seymour Duncan, because they're going to tell you where to put what lead. Get a little masking tape. Put the lead numbers on your leads. Put little notes on your leads. Don't be afraid to put some tape on there and cut it off when you're done.
At least, even if you leave it, who cares? Nobody's ever going to see it.
Never going to get seen. But my understanding is anywhere. So what is it? Fenders come with, is it 500 meg?
250K.
250K. I moved up to 500s to give myself a little more punch.
In what? In your Fender?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be, you've also running humbuckers in there, right?
Yes.
So if you run humbuckers, you should be at 500K anyway.
Right.
Actually, I would recommend if you're running humbuckers, the tonal upgrade is 750 or 1 meg.
Yeah, I think I went to 1 meg. I tried.
Go ahead.
The way to look at that is the higher output is going to be you're going to want a bigger resistor. You also want to be careful when you buy your pickup, when you buy your pots, you want to decide whether you want a linear taper or what's the other taper?
Linear and
the tonal or
logarithmic.
Logarithmic, yeah. So what they mean by
that's audio taper. That's the same thing.
Right, audio taper. So a linear taper is simple. As you turn it, it's even. The amount of ohms you add and subtract is even as you turn the dial. A logarithmic taper has a lot of roll off for the ohms in the first 1/3 of a
Well, it depends on which way you wire it in.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
And that's a big part of it. So here's my takeaway from this. You need a logarithmic pot for your volume pot, because your volume pot, the way that your ear perceives volume is different than it is not a linear taper. And so it'll sound like you're rolling off a whole bunch right up front. Right. And then all of a sudden it starts to be normal, right? If you use linear. So I would highly recommend an audio taper pot for your volume pot, logarithmic, same thing, your volume pot. And as for your tone knobs, you can do either one. And it really just comes down to personal preference.
Yep, I always went with a linear. But I think again,
it's whatever my guitars have stock in them. I don't mess with them. Yeah. Honestly, like I try to buy guitars that have decent quality electronics to begin with. I know that's not always the case. I got a Shingze. And I've had some Gibsons, which I don't like the fact that they have the boards in the amps, but I don't hate them. I'm not saying you shouldn't use the board in your amp. I just wasn't happy because I wanted more treble. There were some other things. Like if I had to replace pickups, I don't want to have to do some like four wire jumper thing. It's just ridiculous. So I just ripped mine out and had them put in 50s wiring.
So I can't remember who the amp builder was that was talking about the fact that people will buy 20 guitars and 1 amp or 2 amps.
Yep.
And that was the thing that we talked about. The big tonal differences that we get to. Your biggest tonal differences, if you don't want a bunch of amps, get 1 head and a bunch of cabinets. Or get 2 heads and a bunch of cabinets.
Or get a modeler.
Or a modeler and a bunch of cabinets.
You don't even need a bunch of cabinets. If you got a modeler and you got a full range system, you got cabinets in the modeler.
Yeah.
And now with impulse responses, I mean.
Yeah. IRs are getting much better.
IRs are indistinguishable from a real cab mic'd up. They are. Yeah. They're not better. They are there. So
you're going to get the purists that will challenge us.
Fuck them. I don't care. I'm telling you right now, they are almost indistinguishable. You literally cannot tell the difference unless you are in the room looking at the cabinet.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Now, as far as the digital amp modeling goes, that's a whole nother animal. But cabinet models, they're there. I mean, as far as that goes, that's a whole done deal at this point.
Yep. But anyway, the thing that we're talking about here is, if you do want several tones, get a couple of heads and connect them up to your speaker. Now, most combos,
3 heads and 3 cabinets, you're set.
Right. Most combos, if you like the speaker in your combo, most combos, if you want to get another head, you can put the head right on top of your combo, hook the speaker up into the head of the new head,
and
just keep the other one off, and you can do that.
That's so ghetto. So what I'm planning on doing,
it is ghetto. I'm not saying. I'm just saying for practicality purposes.
I
just saw, who was it? Ryan was showing a picture of all the stuff that he drags in out of a gig.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, Ryan, dude, what?
I don't think that's a problem. Like I've carried in more than that.
I carry in more than that, but I sing. So I carry a lot of microphone. If I took away my microphone stuff and my everything else, I can get in with 2 hands.
Yeah, I know.
And a backpack.
But I guess it really depends on what you're doing. I mean, if you're trying to be authentic, then you're going to have to carry more shit, and that's just the way it is. Some people like that. Some people are like, man, this is the way I want to do it, and I'm fine. Just like Ryan, somebody was recommending, Ryan, don't do that. And Ryan's like, no, dude, I'm cool. Like, this is fine. I'm not trying to modify this.
No, somebody tried to tell him how to carry the stuff, like put it all into a case,
they were like, road case it, and he's like, I'm fine with it.
No, I got to get in between. I got to get in between cars, and I can see where Ryan's coming from for that because that's.
But yeah, I mean, I get it. I think nowadays a modeler goes a long way if you're playing little gigs, and so for if you're playing bar gigs, spend your money on a PA. I mean, you'll get more use out of the PA than you will, an amplifier other than at your house. I think even things like the Katana have. I watched an Anderton's video yesterday of Chappers running through all these different amps, and he had to decide whether it was an amp or a pedal, right? And they put him through the Kemper, and he thought the Kemper was an amp. No, he thought the Kemper was a pedal, or I don't remember what it was. I think he's like saying it was a pedal or something. But he's like, it's one of the best sounds I've ever heard. And then he ran through a Katana, and he goes, "That's a Kemper." And he's like, it absolutely is a Kemper. And if you think about that, that's a $350 amp that they're calling, just as good as a $2,000 profiling device.
Yeah, but again, he's alone in a room without a band, and I get it. But
the Katana will be fine with a band, Jim. There are guys doing it now.
I'm not saying it's not fine with a band. What I'm saying is I wouldn't put it up against the Kemper in a band situation. No, I wouldn't put the two as the same.
The Kemper's only as good as the profiles you're putting in it too, and that's I was reading a thread somewhere the other day, and there were some guys going, mine just sucks, and then the other guy's like, what profiles are you using? Because you've got to remember this amp it's not really an amp. It's just a playback device for profiles. And
absolutely,
it totally makes sense. Like if I was going to profile my Mark V and I do it in a shitty room, and then I wonder why it sounds like shit on stage, well, there's my answer. So, I was actually thinking about getting a Kemper, selling my Helix around Gearfest and getting a Kemper instead. But I don't think I'm going to do that. If anything, if I switch away from the Helix at this point, I'm probably going back to full analog, well, as much as I can. Obviously I have digital effects and stuff, but I
might be the one buying your Helix, so
we'll see about that.
Or a Pod HD 500.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally see for what you're doing right now. I could totally see that. Are you able to use the? Are you having any problems with the?
No problems.
Yeah, but even like the funk stuff and all that kind of music you're doing right now, the disco and all that stuff.
Yeah,
the clean sound.
Matter of fact, I'm on the clean sound. So what I normally do right now is I've been running. So to get my disco sound, I'm doing a lot of disco stuff. I'm pulling the. It's not truly authentic, but I'm pulling the coil split,
right?
The coil tap, right? So I'm tapping the coil. Mostly using the bridge pickup, surprisingly enough.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a bridge pickup sound in most of that stuff. So
definitely backing off on the volume. I'm down to like 4.5 on the volume, sometimes 5, which gives me a whole lot of headroom. I had forgotten because I haven't been playing like that in a long time, so I had forgotten that I don't need a booster pedal. All I do is
not for that. No,
I roll that bridge pickup up, I kick a little overdrive, and I can slam a good solo. Mm-hmm. And then all I do is roll back, and I'm there.
So you're using the clean tone on the Amp 1, though, and it sounds great.
Big time, yeah.
Very Fender-like?
Very. Extremely Fender-like. The vintage tone, which his vintage, I can roll off and get a really good, plinky sound, but not as pure as when I go to his clean tone, which...
Yeah, because the vintage is based on the KT66 Marshall.
Yep.
So
where the other one, the clean, is based on a Fender.
Yeah,
and it
Fender,
really shows. It really shows. It's extremely clean.
So I heard him play it when I was at Gearfest, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. But I didn't get to mess around the clean channel a whole lot. And I think that would be one of the deciding factors on whether I get one. I may influence the wife to just give me an Amp 1 for Christmas.
Yeah.
I guess it really depends if the Mercury is going to be out by then. I was gonna ask him about that. Yeah. I have to get in touch with Thomas anyway, because I've been listening to his records, and when he comes to Gearfest next year, I know he's got stuff that's not in print here in the United States. I want more of his catalog. I want as much as he can bring me, and I will pay him. And I've been listening to one song. I'm gonna tell this story because it just goes to show you like what music can do to people. I woke up from a dead sleep the other night. It was like 3:00 in the morning, and I could hear this part in my head, and I'm like, I've heard this in the last couple of days, and it was in my dream. And as I started, like, in the haze of everything I could remember in the dream, I was playing with somebody, and he was playing this part, and I was just like, "That's so killer! I want to play that." And then I pulled out my guitar, and then I was like trying to do it, and I figured out that it was in sixth and stuff, and I had a lot of the lick down, and then I woke up, and that's when I had this moment. So for the last 4 days, I've been going through my iTunes history and listening to the stuff I've been listening to for the last 4 days to find this line, and I found it, and it's in Thomas Blug's TNT, and it's not AC/DC's TNT, right? And it's Thomas Blug's doing this line in the beginning. It's a intro bit, and it is so damn good. It's just jaw dropping. If you haven't listened to his playing yet, I know he was on the show. Go get the best of Thomas Blug off of iTunes. It's basically the same album from the studio and then in live. And his playing, yep. I mean, he is. If you like Andy Timmons, you're gonna love Thomas Blug. I mean, that's where he's at. Very lyrical, but there's technical prowess there too. So just killer player. And I hope if I get the chance at Gearfest, I'm gonna walk up to him and be like, "Hey man, can you play TNT for me?" Because that song it does something for me, man. I gotta say, I haven't had a song like that woke me up out of a sleep in a long, long time. Where I'm like, man. Other famous players who've had issues like this, Stevie Ray Vaughan said that he actually used to compose music while he was asleep. Like he would get guitar lessons with Jimi Hendrix while he was asleep, and then he would wake up and he would try to write down the music he had just learned, and oftentimes fail miserably. So there's actually a group of people that believe that he is the reincarnation of Jimi Hendrix. Or he was the reincarnation of Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
So
right.
If that's true,
I could see that.
If that's true, then I submit to you, who is the reincarnation of Stevie Ray Vaughan?
Good question.
Also, I watched Gary Clark Jr. Do a performance today. Man, that guy can play. Oh.
Yes,
and he can sing too.
Yep.
He's really freaking good at it. So
he's got a signature Fender, doesn't he?
No.
He's got a signature SG.
Yeah, he has a signature SG. He's had a signature Epiphone Dot too, I think, because he actually played like a 335 style guitar from Epiphone for a while.
I got to play a 335 and a 3 something 5. The single cut.
Okay,
version.
It's like a 315 or something like that.
Yeah,
or a 135.
Well, it was 3 something. It was like a Birdland.
Okay.
As far as its size.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to play it more often.
You know the one guitar that I like that you don't see a lot of anymore is the Blues Hawk. Because it was a semi-hollow with a Veritone circuit, and it was kind of Les Paul body style shape with a P90 in it. Actually, it's a pair of P90s. That's a killer guitar. If you've ever played one, they're pretty cool. And the Veritone thing's kind of hit or miss. Some people like it, some people don't.
Yes, it is. Yep.
But yeah, if I saw one of those guitars somewhere cheap, I might have to cough up, because I actually like those quite a bit. They're cool slide guitars too.
Yeah. So as you know, I'm looking at the Fender Player series.
Oh, you still thinking Fender?
Yeah, possibility. Yeah.
Watch Anderton's video on the GNLs because they're carrying the GNL line now.
Yeah.
And watch their because they do a little bit of like comparison talk, like where does this range sit with this range, and they're comparing the tributes, and it's so funny because their pricing's different over there, but they're comparing the tributes with the Player Series, and they're basically neck and neck. Actually, in fact, I think he says the tribute might be a step above the Player Series, but he's like, I don't want to say that. It's like I don't want to say that because
he can't really,
yeah, and
he sells them both.
They have to be super careful about saying that this is a Strat style guitar. They can't say that. They have to say this is a Legacy, and it resembles this other guitar.
Yeah, the S style guitar.
So they're doing Gino right now. Cool thing. They're doing this thing called CLF Research, which is a throwback to the '80s guitars. And the first guitar they came out with is the Skyhawk, which is it's basically an S500, but with their old style body from the '80s, and that thing looks really cool with the new headstock. Because the original headstocks, they didn't like them, but the new Skyhawks look kind of cool. But that's not what you're going for. If you were going to buy a G&L, I would say Legacy straight up, and I would go Tribute because they're fine. But if you're looking for a Strat and like you want resale value, then you got to go Fender and get.
Yeah, because you're looking at exactly the same price, really.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't buy new though. That's the difference. So if I was going to buy a Tribute, I'd buy used. I wouldn't bat an eye at buying used.
Right.
So, just because I played enough of them that, even if the guy dicks it up pretty bad, like what am I out, like $100 to pull the frets, put new ones in, and have somebody do a fret job on it.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's harder. When you're looking at G&L, it's harder because at that price point, Fender's not going to hold a lot of value.
It might surprise you
any more than the Legacy.
The Legacies go for half price used.
Yeah,
the Player Series is not going to go for half price used. Now, there's no precedent for that yet.
There's no precedent because the Player Series hasn't got a chance to get a lot of used.
The comparison would be Mexican Stratocaster new price versus Mexican Stratocaster used price, which I would say is probably 60% of its original value.
Right.
So 60% versus 50%. G&Ls don't hold their value. They don't. I'm the first person to tell you that right now. But if I was buying used, it doesn't matter because the depreciation's already been taken off.
Yeah. But if you look at them, they're in the $400 category used.
What, G&Ls?
The Legacies.
Oh, no, I see them for $360 all the time. $350, $360. That's not $400. And you can get free shipping if you find one local. Not local, but like in your area, and you say, hey, I'm only, so far away. If you ship it to me, it's only going to be like $20.
Yeah, I'm looking at. You got to remember, I'm in Virginia. There's not a lot of used stuff in this area.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, you're telling me you wouldn't have one shipped from Washington D.C. or in Maryland or somewhere like that. That's the shipping on that would be minimal. It ain't no $100 to ship it from like a neighboring state. Believe me, I got in a lot of deals by that. I look for people in like Ohio and stuff. I'm like, you're only like a day away from me.
Yeah, but if I'm going to buy
what you're rating, if
I'm going to buy a used guitar like that, I'm going to still want to play it anyway. So
fair enough.
That's where the danger comes in. You look
Jim, you need an adventure. That's what you need.
You look at these things and it's like, okay. A lot of people have no problem. They're like, yeah, I'll buy a guitar for
$350. I wouldn't care. You're talking $500. You're talking about buying new. That's not what they cost, Jim. $350.
That's what I'm saying. $350. Oh yeah, that's nothing. And I get it in, and I'm like, I don't really like this. And then I'm out that much money because I didn't get to play it new either because nobody around here carries G&L.
Well, here's where I come down on this. If I know the specs of the guitar, I don't need to touch it. I don't. I can tell you whether I'm going to like it without touching it.
Yeah, but I've never played a G&L.
So what's your problem then?
And I don't know what they feel like.
It's a Strat.
But
Jim, come on. It's a Strat with a 12-inch radius. You play any Strat with a 12-inch radius, and that's what it is. It's the same body. Same thickness and everything. There's no difference. Believe me, I've played enough Fenders over the years to tell you there's really not much of a difference. I know there will be people in the group, oh, well, the arm contour varies by a half a degree. And it's like, come on. I'm shaking my head. But no, I get it, Jim. Like you've never played one, but don't poo-poo them unless you try one. And I'll tell you right now.
That's what I'm saying. I'd have to travel 100 miles to play one.
I am not happy about buying a Fender right now. Like if I had to, so the Fender's got a couple of guitars I'm kind of eyeing. And I'm still sitting there going, dude, I can spend $1,500 for this, which I feel like I'm losing $300 in that deal. I would be better off because I'm going to play it. I don't buy stuff to sell it. So if I'm going to buy, a Telecaster, it would make more sense for me to go buy like an ASAT Classic because I can get exactly what I want from an ASAT Classic, like down to the finish. If I want that purple sparkle finish, I'll just call them up. I want Purple Sparkle, ASAT Classic. In a month, I'll have it.
Right.
So, It makes, and I like the idea that you had. See, that's the only thing that I would, and this is the only thing I would say. This is why you need to touch a Gino before you buy one, because neck shapes they're different. But if you know what a C shape feels like, they're a C shape. They do make some V's and stuff too. But I mean, basically, a C shaped neck is a C shaped neck to an extent. Obviously, the thickness of the neck varies and stuff, but theirs is pretty middle of the road. It's not baseball bat or anything like that. Basically, they try to emulate what Fender is doing in the Tribute series. So the Tribute line is basically here's our take on what Fender is doing right now, except we're going to put a 12-inch radius on it in a lot of cases. I don't know that the current Legacy may not be 12 inches, because I was reading the USA Legacy standard neck dimensions now are 9.5. So,
well, that kind of makes sense.
Well, it does make sense because that's supposed to be
capture that.
There's supposed to be the Legacy is supposed to be their Fender killer. That's what it's supposed to be.
And the Tribute, the Tribute's going to be different from the true Legacy, right?
Well, how?
I just mean, are they going to do anything different with it?
It's usually the same bodywood, and you can spec your bodywood too on the USA. The only difference with the USA's is you get to choose what you want on them. So if I call up and I say I want an ash body, I can do that with the USA. Whereas like for the S500, they typically come with a mahogany body. So if I'm going to go buy a Tribute, I'm getting the mahogany body. That's the difference. Whereas the USA, I can say I want ash, or I can say I want this, and they'll do it. Then they have a list of options, obviously. So you'd have to kind of go through a dealer to find out exactly what you want. I'm looking on their site right now to see what the Tribute.
Yeah, it says 9.5 inch radius.
Yeah, so they're down to 9.5 on the Legacies now.
Yeah, so that's
funny.
It's funny that they're doing that.
Well, it kind of makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't say it's funny so much. I'm surprised because I just bought my S500. I'm checking it to make sure it's a 9.5. It should be. Or it should, not 9.5, 12.
Yep. I remember those funny pickups they had on the ASATs, the Comanches.
Yeah, the MFTs. The Comanche's a different thing. That's the split coils.
Yep.
I'm not a big fan of Comanche. I played one just recently and thought it played like shit. So.
Well, they've got an ASAT and a Comanche that both got like this weird P-based.
The Z coil, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And I don't see the then that's the other thing is their website sucks because I'm on Safari and it's showing like as a mobile website.
Yeah.
This is riveting right here, by the way.
So I mean, again, I'm not poo-pooing the G&L by any stretch of the imagination.
No, by the way, the S500 is a 12-inch radius. I thought so because it plays just like my other one.
Yeah.
Honestly, the medium C that's on that, which I'm pointing at, it's behind me. That's that. The medium C that's on that is just like what you're going to get on an American Standard right now, or whatever they're called, the Professional Series or whatever. It's identical in shape. So I'm totally happy with that. They do. So I don't know if Fender's doing the Rosewood anymore, or are they doing Palfaro now?
It's Palfaro on the Player Series at least.
Yeah. But
I'm going to be getting a maple anyway.
They're doing Brazilian cherry for their fingerboards on the S500. I think the Legacy you can get in maple, the Tribute Legacy. But I wouldn't buy new. I would buy used. I'd look for one of the older new ones because what happens is a lot of and this is going to be kind of a funny way of looking at it. But what happens with a lot of these guitars is they end up a beginner buys it because it's like what their store offers is their beginner guitar, and then they take it home and they don't play it, and then it ends up getting sold on like eBay or something, and it might go through 2 or 3 players' hands before it ends up in yours.
Right.
But they're fine. Like I honestly, so when I was first investigating G&L years and years ago, Godin was the brand that everybody was buying and saying this is better than an American Standard Strat.
Yep.
And I bought one. I had one. It was not better than an American Standard Strat.
Nope. I owned a Godin.
I had what was it? The SDXT, I think. And and it was a good guitar, but it was not as good as an American Strat. There were no way in hell. And when I bought this this tribute, I was like, that's what I should have bought. If they were that good back then, I should have bought that, because that's what I was looking for. These are every bit as good as a USA Strat. That's why I'm like, for a lot of people, if you're going to use this as an actual guitar and you're not going to sell it, I would just buy a Tribute Legacy and be done with it. I mean, if you want an off-the-shelf guitar, if you're looking for something special, if you need some particular feature that you're only going to get on a Fender, like Fender has the Elite Strat with all the extra bells and whistles on it. If you're going to use that stuff, then get the Elite Strat, by all means. So
no. I don't need anything like that.
I mentioned it in the last episode. I watched that Johan Segborn video where he looked at all the Strats from like 1975 back to 54 or whatever when it was introduced, and it was really kind of telling. You can hear the differences in each guitar, and you don't know if it's because of the model year, because they did make changes every year. Virtually every year the Strat's been around, changes have happened. Or if it's just, each guitar sounds different. But I'll tell you, the 60, the 61, actually I think it was the 61, 62, and 63 were all brilliant. Maybe the 60. I could be 61, 62. I'm not really clear on that. But I know if I was shopping for, a $10,000 Strat, I'd be buying a 61. I would not hesitate. That would be the guitar to look at.
Right.
So if you're looking at pickups, Jim, that's, look for the 61s. Trust me. The difference in tonality is palpable. I was floored. And I think we talked about it in the last episode, but a lot of the famous players play 60, 61, 62s. They're in that between 60 and 64. Like, those are where all the good Strats are, apparently.
It's funny to hear people talk about that. There's only certain. Yeah, go ahead.
I like the Yngwie pickup too.
Yeah.
So everybody thinks they're going to be these super hot, like, treble inflected pickups, and they're not. They are very mild output, and they sounded really, really good. So if I was speccing out a guitar, because they're noiseless, that would be what I would do. You're looking to play. The Players is the Mexican series now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the Mexican.
So it depends on the pickups, because I need to get my hands on one of the current Mexican series. I've actually picked one up and strummed one, but I haven't plugged it into anything yet. I would be curious as to what the quality of pickups were. I know the Mexican pickups that I've used before were awful. I couldn't jive with them at all. They were anemic. And even some of the older USA pickups, like the USA Strat I had, I think was a 98, and the pickups in it were abysmal. They were. I couldn't believe that they were putting these pickups in American guitars, just thin, like no guts to them at all. They were extremely low output. I ripped them out almost immediately and threw in a set of Duncans. But
really. Yeah,
because they were junk, and they went with the guitar when I sold it. So I was like, yeah, I don't want these anymore. You can have them. They were bad.
Keep these.
Well, and listen. I know a lot of people who've bought Fenders of that era, and that's the first thing they did was just rip the pickups out because they were garbage. Maybe you get a good one every once in a while, or maybe some of the models are not that way, but the ones that I've owned were, because I had a 98 and I have a 2002 Jimmy Vaughn Strat, which is Tex-Mex. The only thing good in that guitar was the bridge pickup. The rest of the pickups in it are garbage. I had an SRV Strat that was from, I think that was a 99. And the pickups, so the SRV pickups are like their own thing anyway. They're Texas Specials, and they're just super muddy. they're really high output, and it's kind of funny because when they took Stevie's guitar apart, his pickups were not high output at all. They were like 6.4 or something, so they were kind of mild by today's standards. I mean, obviously you can get a single coil at like 11K now if you want. I think Bare Knuckle does one at like 18K, a single coil pickup at 18K. It's like the maximum output you can possibly get from a single coil.
That's incredible.
I forget what it's called, but yeah, fact check me. It may not be 18K, but it's stupidly high output. It's like an active pickup, but passive. So
I wouldn't. Yeah.
You don't need that, like Jim. You actually need like a straight set of just like normal pickups, like custom shop 50s pickups or something.
Exactly. I don't think I would want to do any of that stuff.
All right. Well, so we're at an hour and 24 minutes, and we did not stay on topic very much in this podcast, but that's fine. We do that every once in a while. It's not bad. We don't talk about, Kavanaugh and that kind of stuff on this podcast. So we got, that was as close as I'm going to get to talking about Kavanaugh, right? Saying his name. So, believe me, you don't want me to talk about that. Yeah, that's exactly. So we say Kavanaugh. We've said it like 4 or 5 times now. Kavanaugh. Yep. I have been David.
Kavanaugh. One more Kavanaugh for 4. All right. And I've been Jim.
And we have been the Practical Guitarists. Kavanaugh.